Hello, welcome to C3 TV. This is Interviewing Leaders, and today we're talking about starting something new with Valerie McIntyre. Hello, Val. Good to see you.
Hello. Good to see you too.
Nice to be here with you,
Me
and
too.
we're very, very honoured to have your time and get to chat right now. So
similar.
I'm excited.
Same.
This is starting something new. So
Yeah.
you're a powerhouse of a businesswoman. You're a pastor of pastors, a mentor, and now you've stepped out into something new, into starting a new business online. And so talk to us about that. What made you want to step out and start something new?
Well, so I run a marketing business. We do digital marketing and brand strategy. And every week, literally, I get people who reach out to me and have asked for advice, whether it's around marketing or starting something new, et cetera. And or just like wanting to think through their next career move. And so I thought I'd intentionalize it because I'm doing it already. So I created a website with some background information and some thought starters, and I redirected my social media to help people who want to start something new start thinking about the steps that they need to take and some of the questions they need to be asking. And I offer up one-on-ones with people who just want to sit for a half hour, an hour, and let me hear about their dreams and what they're thinking about doing, maybe some of the missteps they've taken, and then they're thinking about new ways of doing this, and just really analyze what their opportunities might look like and give them some sound and hopefully actionable advice. So I do it anyway. I figured I'd make it real. So it's been so much fun. I've had such a good time just, hearing people's dreams, like what they want to do and kind of helping direct and redirect a little bit. And it's just been awesome. I'm loving it.
That's so good.
Yeah.
And when you start something new like this, I'm sure there's an element of risk.
Yes.
There's like financial risk. There's risk to all sorts of things. What's your approach to risk?
So it's interesting. I'm a bit of a risk taker, and I'm also strangely risk adverse, which kind of describes a little bit about who I am in terms of possibilities. So for me, I always start with yes. To me, the possibilities are endless, and I always think yes, and it's way out there somewhere, and let's pull it back in. With that kind of a mindset, you can see all the yeses and the possibilities. You could also see all the downsides. So for me, in terms of risk, I am strategic about it. I do my research. I think about, what the upshot could be and also what some of the downsides could be. And then I also assess how much do I want to step out. Different times of life, you'll want to do things differently. So as an older person, I have less of a runway. So my risks are different than they would have been in my 20s and my 30s, right? When you're younger, you've got more time to make mistakes and start all over again. Yeah. There's nothing better than testing and learning and finding your way forward that way. You actually spend less money that way because you test and learn, rather than build the whole thing. There's an actual thing called the skateboard. It's like build the skateboard before you build the car. But yeah, so I take risks strategically, if I might say that. But I also, that's around my business or starting something new. One of the biggest risks I take in life in general is with people. So in my business, I've taken a lot of risks on people who didn't have the right resume, maybe the right experience even, but I love their attitude and I love their aptitude. I could tell they had the right stuff, and I hired them anyway, and I've had some amazing successes doing that. So risk is really up to the individual.
That's so good.
If that helps, I don't know.
Oh yeah, I love the skateboard.
Yeah.
When you're identifying, say, someone, there is a risk, but I see something there.
Yes.
Is that a gift, or do you think that's a skill you've developed over time to be able to identify those things?
That's a really good question. And to be honest, it's kind of interesting because the person who has a quote unquote talent or gift doesn't always know that they've got it. So for me, it feels normal to see gold in someone. I was just having a conversation yesterday with somebody about a creative director that I'd love to hire. And that person has been a little bit inconsistent. And I said to this other person, I know they're inconsistent. They're actually quite tricky. However, I see so much potential in that person, and I want them to work with me because of the great work that they do, and I know they can do, but I also want to give them a chance because I think they don't actually see the opportunities within their own selves the way I see it, and I think I could unlock something. So I feel like for me, I just love unlocking people's unlimited potential. I love seeing people, do more than they ever thought they could do, and really go for it and pursue those dreams. So I get so much joy out of that. It's sometimes a tough road, a lot of work. And you can be very disappointed along the way. People don't, live up to their your expectations or live up to their potential, but what the heck?
That's great.
Give it a go.
That's so good.
Yeah.
What do you do when you've taken a risk on someone or something and perhaps it hasn't worked and you've felt disappointed? How do you bounce back or rebound? How do you make sure that you're not in your mind saying like, I'll never do that again or I'll never try again? How do you recover from those things and maintain that same yes-like attitude?
Sure. I think that what I try to do is I see everything as a specific and unique moment in time. So, you have to learn from your mistakes clearly, otherwise you're as foolish not to. So I try to learn from every quote unquote perceived mistake, but they're also learning opportunities. Yeah. So mistakes can actually be steps forward, quite frankly. Most people who start something new fail their first time out or even their second time out, and then they hit it on the third time, but they don't keep trying, they're never gonna get there, right? So in terms of disappointment, people who give a lot tend to be often very disappointed because you're just constantly giving out and it's kind of like, So that's another subject, but I make sure that I'm feeding myself through my walk with Christ, through my relationship with Jesus, through caring for my soul while I'm giving out, while I'm learning, and people can disappoint you one time and come back around and do just fine the next time. And they could find their footing in another place with another person. So one of the things I 100% never do is write anybody off, ever.
That's great.
Ever.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, you're obviously a very high capacity woman. You can make things happen, so many pursuits, so many things. It's amazing. How do you maintain focus on all that you're doing, or balance focus, or how do you? I just want to know, how do you focus?
That's a good question. I prioritize, so I set goals for myself. I'm not hard and fast on the goals sometimes, all the time, because things shift and change, and I'm big on adaptation. Like, I'm super big on being flexible. I never hardly ever take no for an answer. I was just kind of bad. My husband's like, what? But I can see ways around things. So I actually have to hold myself back a little bit because I'm a very hard worker, and I'm good at plowing forward, and I'm very good at talking other people into doing my will. So I also have to be very careful about my motivation, right? So I can set a goal. I can figure out what I feel like the roadmap will be, and then I can check my progress and determine, is this really lining up with what I wanted it to be? And one of the things I'm always careful of is people are generally with you on that journey, and so how is this affecting the people that are going on this journey with me? So if it's my husband, he's my partner in life. If what I'm doing is not good for our relationship, I need to adjust my goal because of that. Yeah. If my employees are not having a great time with this new project I think is awesome sauce, got to reevaluate. So anyway, I'm motivated because to me, I'm really excited about what's next. I'm the what's next person.
That's great.
So that's motivation right there. What's
I love that. I love that. How do you, I'm really curious to know, as the what's next person, how do you make sure that you're still enjoying what's now? Like, how do you have ambition and vision and yet contentment at the same time?
Well, when you figure that out, you let me know, because I'll be much better off for it. That's a good question. People talk a lot about a work-life balance or just balance in life, and I honestly don't believe that I don't know if that's actually a a possibility or an option. I'm really big into the idea of rhythm. So it's flowing up, flowing down, flowing sideways, flowing outward. So for me, I love what's next keeps me very alive. It also keeps me focused. It keeps me excited. It keeps me up. And then right now keeps me grounded. So for me, one of the most fun ways I've done that is feeding into my soul. So years ago, when I was 40, I was working so hard and I was just like drying up, you know? And I suddenly thought, I need to start doing some things that are fun for me without it meaning that they would turn into anything productive. I'd become an expert at it, or it would be done well, or even perfectly or well. So I just started I picked up golf. I'll never be a good golfer. I started painting. I started taking French. I started taking the piano. I started, studying the piano. So that's how I stay grounded in the now. I just do things that I enjoy, that I may never be good at, but I just love. There's no expectations, and it takes all the pressure off. So that's how I say is in rhythm. So
that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
And how long do you think it took you to figure out your rhythm? Because I would love to know. If I could figure out mine, from this interview and walk away, I would love that.
Okay. You know what? It's going to be I'm sorry to say it's a lifetime experience, right? So your rhythm is going to change over the course of your lifetime, and that's going to be around what's the priority in your life right now. So when you're young and you don't have children, it's often, it could be in the pursuit of a partner. It could be around your job, et cetera. When you're a little bit older and you got kids, the kids are going to be a focus for you. So if you loved playing golf, for instance, in your 20s, but suddenly you find yourself with kids, you're going to be hanging out on the weekends with them. So I think it's just, like I said, it's a rhythm. It's just finding where you're at right now. I think lowering your expectations on being perfect. It's recognizing what's important in life. Family and friends and relationships are the most important things. And more important than that, of course, is our walk with Christ.
Yeah.
And so without prioritizing Jesus every morning with that Bible, with my prayer, I'd be lost. It keeps me grounded, it keeps me sane, and also taking the time to listen, because guess what? You're hearing from God, He will make your path straight.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love that. I'm speaking from the experience of, say, moving out of a ministry season into a business season. I'm sure there's many people watching in that zone.
Yeah.
Either they're in the throes of it or they're about to.
Yeah.
What advice would you have for those people moving out of the ministry zone into the business zone?
Well, okay, that's an interesting question. I got thrown from the business zone into the ministry zone when I got married to my husband, Simon. But prior to that, I was in church in Manhattan, and I was a healthy member of that church. So I was leading a connect group, I was leading a prayer group, I was greeting people at the door. I volunteered for kids' church. I was very involved in our church life. I was blessed to have great pastors in Stephen and Mel Hickson. And so I was just really into my church. And then I got married, and then I suddenly was running a church, overseeing a region, on the exec with Global, and running my business internationally from London.
Wow.
So I'm a really good juggler, that's obvious. I never thought I could deal with all the time zones, but I did. God is so good. He gives you the capacity to do the things that He's called you to do in that season. And then we gave away our church in London to a beautiful couple. We relinquished our oversight of Europe to another beautiful couple. And then Simon and I are now the overseers of America. So that we never saw coming, ever. So you just have to be willing and ready to do what God calls you to do. And I'm still running my business, and I'm starting a new business.
Wow.
So, I don't know if I see a lot of pastors leaving pastoral ministry and popping into business. I kind of came out the other way around.
Sure.
But what I would say is, if God's in it, it's going to be okay. And I don't want to over-spiritualize it, but it's really worth staying quiet and listening to God and hearing what He's saying to you and being open to doing what He tells you to do, because you may not actually want to do that.
Yeah.
But if you listen to Him and you're faithful to what He says, you actually can't go wrong. So it's about flexibility. It's about listening. It's about creativity, and it's about the joy of something new and learning something new. So
That's great.
be open to learn.
That's
You're never
great.
too old to learn something new, ever.
How good is that? I'd love to know the bivocational thing, or like I'm in business, I'm in ministry. I think there's a lot of voices that can speak into ministry only, and there's a lot of voices that can speak into the business world.
Yeah.
What do you think is the secret sauce of being bivocational?
Well, there's a few things. Like on a selfish level, it's really awesome. I remember when I was just like deep into like running our church in London with my husband, it was like, some days church is tough, because church is all about people, and people are never, they're messy, right? I'm a messy person, everyone is. And then I'd think, I'm going to go work, And then I'd get into my business, and then it would be all the backstabbing craziness of corporate America, and he'd be like, I'm going back to church. So what I loved about it selfishly was the back and forth, because I felt like just when church was getting to be really tough, I could flip over here, back and forth. But I think the main thing is at the core of everything we do, there are people. So really, you've got to love people. You have to be open to caring for others, whether you're in a church or you're in business. So my business life is almost entirely focused and fixated on the people, my clients, my employees. And some days my employees make me mad. I'm sure I make them mad all the time. But I have to think, okay, this is a bigger picture. I got to sow into these people. I got to love on these people. I've got to train and help these people. It's the same thing with church. It's like people will disappoint you. Most of what you do in church is volunteer. You can't, at work I can be very specific because I'm paying them a salary, a good one. In church it's often very different. And so it's all about losing a little bit of yourself and allowing yourself to just flow into the people zone and see, this is my key, seeing people through God's eyes. So some of the toughest times I've had in church, I feel the Holy Spirit has spoken to me so clearly. He's like, I want you to see them the way I see them. And then I'm like, whew. And he does it to me in work. He's like, I know you're mad at that person. I know that person let you down. He goes, I want you to see them the way I see them. So whenever I do that, everything shifts. I lose my anger, my frustrations, my disappointments. I realign around that, and I'm usually good. So that's where I go.
That's great. I love that.
I don't know if that's helpful.
Oh, it's very helpful.
Okay.
I'm also interested to know when the way or the expectations you have upon people who work for you. Are they the same as people in your church, or how do you do that? Obviously, people that work for you, there's different expectations, different requirements.
Yeah.
And in church, you're dealing with a whole different group of people. How do you do that?
You really need to treat everyone the same, quite frankly. Like I just said, people need Jesus. People need the saving grace of God. We're living in a complicated world right now. I mean, gosh, it's been complicated forever, for sure. But, and we need to be as open as we can to walking it out in someone else's shoes. And like I said, you see them through God's eyes. God knows everything, right? And so I'll get frustrated, but I flip and say, okay, let's find the kindness in this moment. Let's make sure that we're looking at it through their eyes. How are they feeling? What are their frustrations? What are their dreams? What do they need? And so that's a seesaw I walk. I sit on, constant. And I just don't think there's any difference, if I'm really honest. You shouldn't be different in your business than you are in your church.
That's so good.
You shouldn't. You should be the same person. You should be treating everyone the same way. And you got to give yourself a break, because it's not always easy, right? And don't beat yourself up, that's not helpful. Go back into the zone of, forgiveness. And that's probably the other piece of this is forgiveness. It's like I am 100% dedicated to 100% forgiveness.
That is so
100%
awesome.
Forgiveness. It doesn't mean be stupid. It doesn't mean that you repeat the same things and you don't, there's disciplinary actions that need to happen. There's even moments where someone in my business, for instance, I might need to let them go for a variety of reasons. But it's never going to be ultimately personal. And that forgiveness, the peace of forgiveness, is huge. And that can change everything. That can shift atmospheres, that can shift relationships, that can open new doors. You really can't underestimate the power of forgiveness in everything.
Wow. Well, that is so good. Well, on that note, we want to say thank you for joining us. Thank you so much, Val.
Hey,
that was
thanks
such
for
a
having
great
me.
conversation, so
Cool.
enlightening, so helpful. And we hope it's helped you too. And we're praying for you that whatever your pursuit, whatever your calling, whether it's one vocation or two or many, we're praying that the Lord will bless you and you'd be encouraged today. So we'll see you again soon.